Hello, folks. Welcome to Underlords Universe. My brother here, Brent, and I are part of a creative conclave of old folks who create creative things, such as music. We're part of a musical project called Underlords of the Overworld, and our bass player writes fiction in what we call the Underlords Universe. But that's not why you're here. If you stumbled across this, you probably are a Scorpions fan, and you probably thought, what do these guys have to say about the new Scorpions live album? And you're probably also wondering, or I'm wondering, why you might wonder why we have any thoughts on it, but that's okay. Um, so we're not professional reviewers. We don't have record labels sending us a lot of stuff, well, anything, frankly, to review, and we don't do a lot of reviews. But oftentimes we will connect via Zoom if it's a release by an artist that we have a long, long history with, just because it's kind of like, hey, what'd you think of this album? And then we kind of discuss our thoughts on it. We're just inviting you into the conversation. So Brent and I are both longtime Scorpions fans, and the Scorpions have not put out a live album for a long time. So, when this came out, I snapped it up. I know he did, and I was like, okay, I got to talk to my brother and find out what he thinks about this. So, before we get into that, though, I just want to put this into context. The first Scorpions live album, which is, of course, from the Uli Jon Roth era, Tokyo Tapes, which is a classic. The first album I ever bought with my own money was Worldwide
Oh
Live.
yeah,
Yep. And in the 90s, they put out Live Bites. So these were kind of like the live representations, which in a certain sense, up to that point, kind of made sense. You had Tokyo Tapes, which kind of represented the Uli Jon Roth era.
hmm
And oh God, that's a great live album. Um, Worldwide Live has everything post Uli Jon Roth, so Love Drive material up through Love It First Sting. And that I think is a really good live album too, to be honest with you. It's a special album to me. I think they dropped the ball a little bit on Live Bites
yeah.
because of the 14 tracks on here, only 11 are live, and it's kind of like mm, it just doesn't feel like a full show. So even though I think there's some just good things on it, it was kind of like, and that's what, 94?
95, 94, 95.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's
So
the heat era.
yeah. Now they did put out um like a Get Your Sting and Blackout live thing. I think on Wikipedia it's listed as a live album, but I don't believe it was ever actually released on CD or on
Okay.
vinyl. It was just like a Blu-ray or something, and it's like a video, and but it's so I don't really count that. To me, this new Scorpions live album, Coming Home Live, which celebrates their 60th years of band, and you might say, well, how is that possible? Well, Rudolf actually started the band in 1965.
Right.
They didn't
When he
put out
was
an album.
17 years old.
Yeah, the first Scorpions album wouldn't arrive until 72, Lonesome Crow. But yeah, like as a band in one form or another, Rudolph goes all the way back to 1965. So
But
last fall when this came out, that marked, 60 years. And then of course, it was in Hanover. There's a picture of the stadium.
yeah,
I haven't seen anything official about them releasing a Blu-ray or DVD of it, but there is professionally shot stuff because there's videos. I mean, they've put out videos promoting this album with certain songs and stuff. So do you know of any upcoming release of this in
no, no. And I was
okay,
asking, no, and you'd think a 60th anniversary would warrant a release of something like that, a video to go with the record, or that they would have included, a DVD or
yeah.
a with the album. And as far
Th-
as I know, there's no
That's
such.
that's my thought is like, why isn't this like a three disc set with a DVD or Blu-ray in it? Um, Whatever. So that was the big disappointment for me. And part of that is because I want to see, and I know a lot of people say stuff like, well, you're old, no one wants to see old rock stars or whatever. Frankly, I do.
I do.
I'm holding on to this thing that shaped our youth, and I am glad that these guys are out there doing what they do. Some people say things like, well, so and so's voice isn't like it was, and so and so doesn't play, they should hang it up or this or that. It's like, you know what? If you don't want to listen to it, don't check it out. But,
Mhm.
I'm always curious to see how a band proceeds and continues, etc. So at any rate, on this album, you've got, of course, Matthias and Rudolf on guitars, going back decades. Obviously, Klaus on vocals, lead vocals. Um, Pavel on bass, who's, by the way, been there. He's the longest serving bass player in the band's history at this point. And then Mickey D on drums. And I gotta say, just for me, the highlight of getting this official release is getting Mickey D's um, take on these songs. Like actually having an official release that has Mickey D playing some of these songs, um, because he plays them a little differently than James plays them differently than the way Herman played them, etc. So, yeah. Anyway, here we are to talk about this. So, our first number one observation: should have had a DVD or Blu-ray coming with it. But other than that,
Um,
start with your overall. Well, yeah. Your just your overall general impression.
um, I try not to do this with releases by saying, oh, what it could have been instead of what it is. I try to take things for what they are instead of projecting what I want or wanted or what could have been onto this record. But I will discuss that. I think it's in part, and you may agree, I don't know, it's in part a lost opportunity because with a
Okay.
60th anniversary, you could argue this could have been a 3 disc set or a 4 disc set. um they could have devoted a whole side of material to 70s era tracks. They did put a medley in here, which was kind of cool, but they could have played Top of the Bill in its entirety. They could have played Catch Your Train in its entirety, maybe. I think there's a lot of fans out there like me who would have really liked that. It's cool what they did. I think they could have expanded on that. Obviously they didn't want to, but I think it's maybe a little bit of a mixed opportunity. The set list to some degree is pretty standard. It hasn't varied a lot over the years. It's kind of heavy on the classics, the Still Loving You, Blackout, Rocky Like a Hurricane. There's nothing wrong with that, but again, like when you're talking about 60 years, they could have maybe changed it up a little bit. That said, I do think the version of Coast to Coast on this is very good. I love that they did I'm Leaving You, which is one of my favorite Scorpion songs of all time. I think the version of Big City Nights on this record is really good. I think sonically it sounds really good. I think the playing is, for the most part, really good. To your point, Klaus's vocals, he's not the vocalist that he used to be. But again, 40 years ago, he wasn't pushing 80. You have to remember, he and Rudolph are in their late 70s at this
Mhm.
point.
Yeah.
So,
Klaus, they're 77.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah. But for a guy that okay, he can't hit his range isn't what it used to be vocally. Does he sound bad on this record? No. Is he limited in what he can do vocally? Sure. Am I glad that they're still out doing this? Absolutely. So again, I take it for what it is. I
Yeah.
do think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. We talked sometimes about songs I never need to hear again. I don't ever need to hear Wind of Change again. I don't really need to hear The Zoo again. But you get a live version of Gas in the Tank, which is a song off their latest studio album, which is kind of cool.
Hmm.
You have Send Me an Angel on this album. That's cool.
Hmm.
I already mentioned I'm Leaving You, which I love. I'm Leaving You. I love that song. Um, so there are some nuggets on here that I quite like. I love the packaging. I think that the cover is really really cool. That shot of the stadium inside is awesome. I kind of wish there would be an official video release of this, but again, for what it is and not for what I want it to be, I think it's a solid package. I think it's a solid album. And how many bands get to celebrate 60 years? I'm glad
Yeah.
they did, and I'm glad they actually documented it. That's the most important thing.
Well, okay, so you made an interesting point about taking things for what they are rather than for what they aren't. And I think I generally have that same approach, and I apply that kind of thinking more to studio albums than I do to live albums. And that's because with a studio album, you don't have other things to draw from to say, well, it could have been this or it could have been that, right? With a live album, you can. You can say, well, they chose to play 6 tracks off of Love at First Sting. They didn't have to choose that. They could have opted to not play Bad Boys Running Wild. They could have done something else instead. I mean, Savage Amusement isn't represented on this album at all. They could have done, instead of Bad Boys Running Wild, they could have done like Rhythm of Love or something, you know. I mean, not even aiming for like deep cuts or something, right? So I do think that they could have made a more balanced set because it kind of, I did the breakdown on this. There's 6 songs from Love at First Sting, 3 from Crazy World, 2 from Animal Magnetism. My computer decided to move. Okay. 2 from Animal Magnetism, 2 from Love Drive, 1 from Blackout, 1 from Rock Believer, um, 1 which is originally on MTV Unplugged. We'll talk about that here in a second. Then a bass drum solo thing. It's actually labeled as a drum solo. But then you have the medley, which is 4 songs from the Uli era, 1 from each of the albums that Uli was on. Which again, that's cool. I'm glad that's there. I personally tend to not be a fan of medleys. I like full songs. So I would almost rather have just had like
Like
you
Love
said,
Drive,
yeah,
or
or
like a soft. Would you rather have had a Love Drive on this record instead of the medley?
yeah, or Top of the Bill to go into
Yeah,
the Uli era, or We'll Burn the Sky, which is not part of the medley, but I mean that they've, you know,
they
that would have
played
been a
that.
great song. So, it's the set list isn't necessarily exactly what I would have picked. However, like you said, they do I'm Leaving You. And I'm actually with you on that. I think I'm Leaving You is one of the best songs that they ever recorded. Like I love that song. But that's going to be a good segue into I wrote some things about the songs that I wanted to run past you. There's 18 songs if you count the 70s medley as one. Um, Otherwise, it would be 21 if you count those as individual songs. Songs represented in a medley, you could do it that way. The opening track is called 60 Years. I'm not even count that because it's just this 60 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
The intro.
Yeah. I think Mickey D is, like I said before, I think he's kind of the main reason. I actually really like most of the way he plays these classic songs. I think there's a little more finesse in his ride cymbal work and stuff like that on some of these things. Um, but there are some things in here where I kind of have some criticism. So,
Okay.
to see what you say. Maybe I'm just crazy. Okay. So I agree with you about a full song rather than a medley. Um, that said, they changed the chords in the chorus for Speedy's Coming just slightly, and that little change I don't like. It
With
just
you.
kind of bugs me.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
I
glad they did, but yeah, I thought the same thing when I heard it. I'm like, that's not. Wait, that's
mhm.
yeah. There's something going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like a little bit sort of like what they did with the arrangement from the acoustic in the Grease, the MTV thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, there's also, speaking of that, Delicate Dance is an instrumental which was debuted on a recording format that was on the MTV Unplugged in Greece. And I think Delicate Dance is much better as an acoustic song. I just don't think it works as an electric song that well. And it's like, well, okay, so if they needed to throw in another instrumental, to maybe to pace Klaus's voice or something like that, I get it, but I don't think it works as well as an electric song. I also think Wind of Change, even though it's a song that I don't really need to hear again, I don't think it actually sounds that good on this record. I think the chorus sounds really muddy. I don't think that turning up the gain, works as well in the chorus to that song. I'd really rethink how they approach playing that live. It just doesn't. And I've never thought that it sounded good live, to be honest with you.
I, I agree.
Now I have praised Mickey D's drumming on the album, but there are certain areas where, and maybe I'm just nitpicking this, but on "Loving You Sunday Morning," the the little part where it's wop, pop, 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 pop.
Yep, yep,
The way Mickey plays that, it's too tick, tick, staccato
yep.
along with that voice. That kind of bugged me a little bit. Um, I do think it's great to have a live version of "I'm Leaving You" finally, but did you notice they cut they cut it short? They cut on the studio version, they reprised the "Keep Me in Your Mind" part,
Yep.
and they don't do that again on the live version. It was
I
like,
know.
where did it go? I'm like,
I know, and that's so, yeah, exactly, and it's so cool. Yeah,
I
no,
know. It's like that's what helps bring the song to a feeling of finality, is that bringing that
yeah,
part back. Okay,
and
whatever.
it's such a good hook. It's such a great hook too. Yeah,
I really,
I'm really glad that "Loving You Sunday Morning" is on this record. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier because I love that song. I'm sure you do too. So
yeah,
I'm really, really glad it's here. That's a great song, great track.
yeah. Speaking of pluses, I love the way Mickey D plays Big City Nights.
That might be the reason why, because "Big City Nights" is a song I don't usually get into a whole lot. When I heard this version, I'm like, this is actually really, really good, and I think that's probably a big part of it. It's
I
a
think
really
so.
good version. It's a really good version of that
There's
song.
his ride work on that. There's little nuances in the way he plays that I think that just kind of jazz that song up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you also notice that they cut the little vocal part after the solo on "Rock You Like a Hurricane"? And I that kind of bugs me a little bit too. But at the same time, it's like if I want to listen to versions that are exactly like the studio versions, I'll just go listen to the studio versions. So I'm making critiques maybe more so than I am criticisms, if that's I mean, I'm really hedging that because they basically mean the same thing. But
All it is an observation. You're not saying that I don't
yeah,
like the song because they did that. You're just saying they did this. I'm not
yeah.
saying it's good. I'm just they did that. Did you notice it too? It's like yeah.
Yeah.
It's like what?
Some
Like
of
with
the decisions I don't like, but it's
yeah, but you're not going to say okay. I'm leaving you on this record is not good because they did this to it. You're just saying it's like oh my god, a missed opportunity. They did this or whatever.
yeah,
But you're also saying but they did it anyway,
yeah,
and that's their prerogative. And like you, if I want to listen to the studio version, I'll go listen to it.
yeah. And frankly, sometimes I kind of want to know, like, okay, what is a band fronted by a 77-year-old singer? And by the way, his range is actually still pretty darn good.
Good.
It's not. I don't hear him straining. He sounds older, but to me, he doesn't sound like he's straining. I think Klaus sounds really good for being a 77-year-old man. Um, Much better than most vocalists in the genre and in his age. Um, no, this album is not Tokyo Tapes. It's not Worldwide Live, but I do think it's solid. I think it's a solid live album, and I'm really glad they put it out. I would like to see a release on DVD or Blu-ray. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but who knows?
Well,
I don't know if this is
remember,
the last thing we'll ever get from them or not, but I'm glad we got it. That's
well,
there's
remember when Sting and the Tail was going to be it. They're
yeah,
done. That was 15 years ago.
yeah,
Now, can they have a 75th anniversary? Not likely. The guys who would be like, at this point in their mid 90s, I don't
right.
really envision that. But maybe this will lead to a new studio album, and at some point, maybe we should revisit and do shows on all the Scorpions catalog. That would be
Oh,
pretty
I think that's a must.
a lot of good stuff there to talk about. But as I was listening to this record, there were moments where I kind of cringed a little bit. And I thought, Klaus doesn't sound that good right there, or his voice is a little bit thin or whatever.
Yeah.
But on the whole,
Yeah.
it's a good vocal performance for a guy that's pushing 80.
Yeah.
And for the type of songs, these are powerful songs. It's a powerful voice, so it requires projection and it requires a range. And they've tuned the guitars down a little bit some, and they've made it easier for him to sing these songs. But like you said, he doesn't sound like he's straining or reaching for notes that he can't hit. There's
Yeah.
not on this record. It's just there are moments where it's like, oh, that's a little thin, or
Little weak.
maybe he wants the audience to carry it, like
Yeah.
during the chorus or whatever, where normally he would belt it out. That's fine. That
Yeah.
if it helps the show, like if including Delicate Dance helps get him through the show, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. 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 So solid. We're not here to rank the live albums, but um, I will just say this. Like I said, I don't think it's not as good as Worldwide Live, it's not as good as Tokyo Tapes. I'm not expecting it to be necessarily. I will say this. Um, in some ways, I prefer it to Live Bites because it's actually a full show, a
Yeah,
complete show, whereas this didn't really represent a full show at the time. And to me, it's like if you got a live album, at least needs to feel like a full show. So that's
but
my take on it. I give it a thumbs up, but I'm not saying it's the greatest thing ever released.
I got I got to
Solid.
ask you. I got to ask you. So here's an important question: do you have to
Mhm.
pick a favorite song on the record and then a least favorite? Not that you don't like it, but like if you had to pick your favorite track on the record and then like the one
Yeah.
that's your least favorite, what would you pick and why?
Okay. Um, okay. So not counting that like 60 years intro thing, that doesn't count. Okay. Um, I'm gonna say probably honestly on the whole, it's gonna be Big City Nights for Mickey's drumming.
Okay.
That would be the thumbs up. Otherwise, I would say I'm leaving you, simply because we don't have a live version of that. So it'd be a battle between those two. Um, Downside, the negative or the songs that I'd say the least would be either Delicate Dance or Wind of Change, and not because of the compositions, but just because I don't think they work as well in that fully electric live setting. Yeah.
Yeah. Good picks. And of course, I know you've always been a big fan of the lyrics for "Tease Me, Please Me," and to hear a guy who's
Um,
pushing 80 sing the lyrics for "Tease Me, Please Me," that has
I
it's mild,
that okay.
it's mildly entertaining. That's what it
It's
is.
or in cringy, a little bit cringy. I honestly,
Music is great. The music is great. The lyrics are kind of like,
that's a song they could have cut from the set list, and I would not have been upset about that. I
that's
mean,
why I brought it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. To be honest with you, I didn't even, my eyes just went right past that because I was like, yeah, okay.
I know you've always felt that way about the song. Even when we were younger, you were kind of like, yeah, it's not
That's
a favorite.
pretty stupid. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here they are all these years later, and they still include it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Pretty ridiculous, but but yeah, okay. But end report, I mean, it's a solid record. If you're a diehard Scorpions fan, I could see people kind of going one of two ways. You either like us and you kind of like you accept it because you you know you value the the kind of the career longevity, or you're the type that says I'm a diehard fan, and if they're not at the top of their game, I really don't want to hear it. And I could see people kind of being in one of those two camps on it, and I'm more on the side of there's not much, time's going fast, and we don't know how much we're going to get out of them. So I'm glad to have it. I think no qualms about picking it up. Solid release,
yeah,
not didn't blow my mind.
yeah. Sounds really good. I'm like you, get what you can while you can get it from these guys. I'm glad they put it out. It's a solid release. I think again, production wise, it sounds good.
Mhm.
The band sounds really good. And I do hope they do some more studio work. It'll be interesting to see what, if anything, they
Yeah.
do in
The, o- the
so
only other thing I want to say is just contextually, Judas Priest and Alice Cooper played on the same bill that night. with Scorpions in Hanover. And it was also the exact same night of Ozzy's and Sabbath's final show in Birmingham.
That is right.
Same night. So having that, just knowing that context, it was a historic night.
Yeah.
Even though it's not the Sabbath Ozzy thing it's just knowing that it was the same night. And I think Rob Halford had said, they absolutely would have been in the Sabbath thing. But they were, perfectly happy also being there for the Scorpion 60th thing in Hanover. And, so it's just the way things kind of scheduled out. And it's like, I'll always, every time I put that Scorpions live album on, I'll always kind of think, oh yeah, this is the exact same night that the Sabbath thing, and we were so focused on what was going on in Birmingham and everything. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, okay. Mission accomplished. I now know what you think of this record. That was what I want.
Talking about it for a while, and we finally did it. And I
Yeah.
would love to hear what other people think about it as well.
Yeah, yeah. If you're a Scorpions fan, if you picked up this record, if you've noticed some of the nuances that we've noticed, or if there are other things that we haven't picked up on, feel free to comment, like, subscribe. Feel free to check out Underlords Universe stuff. We'll put some links down below. Follow us on the socials or whatever. Okay. Anything else?
No, sir. We'll do this again sometime soon.
Okay. All right. Everybody, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Be good. Okay. Bye bye.